Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon and Flat Earth Homeland. And I see these as very definitely related because of the work and the research I've been doing on the geographical construction of the United States in relation to the craton, tectonic plates, earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanoes, etc., etc. A lot of that by the. Let's give a shout out to Dutch Sense, a guy with a computer that has come up with some amazing observations and relationships of the various geographical and geological constructions of the world in relation to earthquakes, tornadoes, etc., etc. So. All right, so I want to get at least one video done here. It's been a few days. I got started. I got interrupted by a phone call on that last one. And where I left you all was, I had a map of Switzerland up. We're going to get to that. But I'm going to backtrack here and start with the beginning of this study. And I need to go back to this one. I left the website here, alt-market.com. Altmarket.com. You can see that here. This was a kind of a forum, a lot of it economically oriented, trying to predict various trends and whatnot in the United States and around the world. So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go to the article itself. I did want to say, as far as alt market goes, it was started by a young man, kind of based out of Montana, Flathead Lake area. That's where he was, moved to. And that was his choice of relocation. And the group was peaked at about 4,000 people and had a lot of stuff going on. Many people took part in helping found it, moderate it, help it. But he refused to do any moderation on the group, and it just totally destroyed it. There was one man who was a troll on that group, and he drove a lot of the founders away, a lot of the people that helped start it, set it up, organize it, software, set up the website. Just destroyed it single-handedly. So when you're looking at internet and you start studying and you find people that are really negative and insulting and whatnot, that's one of the hallmarks of a troll. They're there to destroy. They're not there to help. They're just there to ruin things for everybody else. And that guy did that. His name was Guy something or other in Kansas. Total troll. Total. I could use a lot of French words like he did, but he was just not a nice person, and he ruined the group. So that's where this is taken from. I wrote on two forums, Alt Market a lot, and also on a website/forum called Prepared Society, which is very well moderated. It was moderated, and it is still in operation. So what I would do is given the figuring out how to use their software, their I can't remember what this one was called. I might run across it here, but anyway, it doesn't make any difference. To be able to write articles and make them look nice, and people always complained to me about using big letters and stuff. Well, I'm glad I did, because this makes for a very decent screenshot and slideshow, and that's what I'm doing here. I've got my phone set up. The tablet is my screen, and that's what we're about to do here and have been doing. And it's going to allow me to get some information out there that I otherwise wouldn't be able to. I used to be, of course, online with my computer, with DSL and completely free internet. Now I'm paying through the nose for it, and but this tablet has really helped a lot. I'm going to see if the jetpack I got can get my computer online, because I've got some awesome stuff on Google Earth about the Ozark Plateau, and I'd like to cover that. But I can't do it without being online and having just the peace and quiet and the capability to look at it and video it. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of 4 comments introductory. So, all right. So once again, I'm going to go to the next screen because this one is just to show you the article title there in the first part there. So there we go. Okay. Now this is an introduction to, as I called it, the strategy of survival in relation to geography, history, military strategy, and natural resources. Now, has my writing done any good? Has it helped it change anybody's lives? Well, 2 people that were on this forum met me through the forum, came out to visit, one from Michigan, one from New Jersey, and came back and bought land here. The guy from New Jersey, I could shoot an arrow from my bow from my family's farm and hit his. Okay, he bought within 400 yards of our farm. The other one lives right down the street from where I'm at now. I don't live on the family farm, even though I led my family here, blah, blah, blah. Went through a divorce and et cetera. And so I was over there last night and, at the house and my son's house and whatnot. So we'll have 4 houses, 4 families living on that farm on 40 acres. And temporarily I'm over here about 8 miles away. But another person moved from Michigan and bought a farm just 3 miles down the road. And it is beautiful. If I got there and I said, I could just stand here on this porch for about 2 hours and just look at this place. Just a picture perfect, beautiful, small farm. So, yeah, my writing has changed some lives. There's 20 families here in the Ozark Plateau that were not here before. They are out there scattered around the country, wondering what in the heck they're going to do to be safe. And now they're here nearby, and their lives are totally different, and I think everybody would say a lot better. So, and I wanted to say that before my Beyond Off-Grid interview, which was going to be at our farm, the director came up with his $3,000 camera, and I had set up my geodesic dome, zip tie dome. Shout out to John Hurt of Zip Tie Domes. Look up ziptiedomes.com, Zip Tie Domes on YouTube. And that's where my interview was done. And my granddaughter was able to run the camera because the director's son, he had a falling out with his crew for some reason. I never did know what. But his son was too short and wasn't capable of handling it. My granddaughter, thanks to her grandmother, Joan, had trained her in using cameras, and she was excellent. She was my videographer for my interview. Well, before that interview, I wanted to have something going on, so I had the dome set up, and I had a in-ground rocket stove in it, which you can look up the videos on that under both my Jerry Diamond channel, which they have like 70,000 views, and I do not know why. On How to Get Out of Babylon, they just have a few hundred. But before that interview, I wanted to have something to show, something that was different. Well, the rocket stove, the director had gone up to spend about $5,000 out of pocket to go up to the Pacific Northwest and film Cody Crone and Paul Wheaton and Rick Austin and a bunch of other people out there. And Paul Wheaton didn't even let him on the property, and he didn't show him a rocket stove, even though he was in the middle of doing a 4 DVD rocket stove, crowdfunded production. So I was able to show the director a novel, a very different approach to a rocket stove, using the earth as thermal mass, being able to sleep on it with your feet on it if it was not too cold, or have your chest on it if it was really, really cold, and over the ground, laying on the ground. But the exhaust port for the rocket stove was underground, so you're actually in the tent, teepee, yurt, cardboard box, Walmart tent, whatever. You could have a rocket stove in there with no smoke inside and no smoke outside, because once it starts heats up, the ground gets hot. It's burning all of the thermal mass that you put into it, i.e. wood, twigs, whatever. So, anyway, I was kind of getting myself psyched up or, prepared mentally for this interview. And the man that had moved here from New Jersey, I said, well, you moved here because of my writings. He met me on Alt Market, and we corresponded, email, text, phone, encouraged him, and, kind of, I call it it's a ministry. It's kind of somewhere between babysitting and coaching and midwifing. Just kind of it's almost a birthing process of people going from where they're at and just pulling up stakes and going through that whole emotional stress. I've done it twice, so I'm not, not speaking from no experience. I did it with my family. I did it with everything we owned, pretty much. I mean, we left things behind here and there, and we did it on virtually zero income. So, just wanted to say that. And so I asked this guy, I said, well, I'm just trying to get my head around this interview. And I said, you moved here because of me, my writings. I said, what was it in my writings? I just want you to think about this, and I'd like to talk to you before, the interview. He says, I don't have to think about it. He says, I can answer you in one word: geography. Geology and geography was it. So the geological construction of the United States dictates that there are going to be changes, and he saw that. He was, and he was a very intelligent man. But he could see that from my writings and from talking to me, and he moved here. So, and that was from a long trip, several trips from New Jersey. All right, so let's get into this. Introduction. 12 years ago, this is from my book. I wrote this in 2000, the year 2000. I titled it various things: How to Get Out of Babylon. Initially called it Wings of an Eagle. WE, because it's going to take we to get through this whole thing. We're going to have to work together. So that one friend pointed out, he said he really liked that, Wings of an Eagle. How to Get Out of Babylon. It's available online on lulu.com, which is a self-publishing firm. You order the book, they send it to you. They charge you whatever they charge you for it, plus then they pay the author whatever he wants. Well, I have had it out there free of charge for a long time. So it is out there available. Go to lulu.com. You see to the right or somewhere a PDF. And what in the... Oh, I didn't. Okay. Sorry about that. I have a timer set, but I guess I talked too long. So you can download it free and read that. It's about 50 pages. It's really just a booklet. It's nothing much more than an outline of what I saw at the time coming to pass, and it has indeed been coming to pass more and more powerfully, more clearly, more directly, more personally than I could have ever dreamed of. So that is something that I would recommend that you read, because it kind of lays the foundation for everything from that time to this that I've been doing. And someday I want to do an update, maybe. I might just do a verbal reading of it and then just reminisce and say, oh, this happened and that happened and the other thing happened, because a lot of things have happened that I wrote about. All right, so 12 years ago, I made up a saying, which came from my assessment of the situation as I saw it. It is still true. A lot of people are going to die because they thought they were smart enough to think for themselves. And I would add to that, a lot of people are going to die because they listened to someone else that they thought was smart enough to do their thinking for them. And they weren't. And there's a lot of people like that out there. And I'm talking leaders that are doing other people's thinking for them and telling them where to live and telling them what to do, and they're not even smart enough to think for themselves, let alone to be thinking for thousands upon thousands of other people. We'll get into that. It's a kind of a bone I have to pick, an axe to grind. Recently, we watched the movie The Druids about Vercingetorix, the great leader in Gaul, France, who stood up to the Romans. The people failed to heed the wisdom of his advice, and so thousands were slaughtered. My son pointed out, quote, "It is what you've been saying, Dad. A lot of people die when they think they're smart enough to think for themselves," end quote. Often we need to subject our intellect to that of another greater or more informed mind. I deliberately did that and ended up where I am now after 4 years in Kansas, boot camp for Missouri, as my wife says. Getting used to ticks, chiggers, humidity, ice storms in January, and snowstorms in March. And it's mid-March here, and we haven't had a snowstorm, and we're way behind on moisture, rainfall. So when I talk about, it doesn't mean that someone's way smarter than you. They might be more informed than you are. And let me give you an example. I said I deliberately did that. Well, when I saw things were going to be changing, life was going to be changing, that the shit was going to hit the fan, however you want to say it, balloon was going to go up. We're going to be living in a world different than the one we grew up in. We are. The end of the world as we know it doesn't mean the end of the world, but life is going to change, okay? Admit that, deal with it, deal with reality, and make commensurate changes in your lifestyle, shall we say. Okay. Grew up in Denver. My idea was always survivalist mentality. I'm going to go to the mountains and hunt, Oh, yeah, and grow a tomato, Well, you can't feed a family on, what you're going to hunt and a tomato. I say a tomato because a friend of mine did have a tomato plant up by Estes Park, and he had a tomato. It wasn't quite right before it died. So, anyway, one of the things I did was I saw that, this is going to go military, so I might as well get to know some military people. So I started, as I called it, collecting Vietnam vets as friends. And one of those that I did had been a Green Beret in Vietnam, 3 tours in Vietnam, lifelong special forces and reserves and, military. In fact, after we went to live with him in Kansas, that's where we spent our 4 years in Kansas was with this guy. He said, the only thing I've ever been good at in life is killing people. Quite a revelation. And so it was interesting. My family was on a very, very, very short list of safe people, because there were days when he woke up, he said, and all his muscles were like steel, and he's in an absolute, utter black rage, and if he saw anybody, he'd kill them, so he'd just stay in his room. He says, but that doesn't, your family's okay, and there's 2 friends of mine, that I wouldn't kill. So that was an interesting time. We learned a lot. So he told me over and over and over again, you got to go east, you got to go east, you have to go east. You cannot go try to live in the mountains. It's not going to be holdable. It will not be tenable, holdable. They will control the water. And from that day to this, it's been a constant, just you can't hunt here and you can't hunt here. You can't go near the river. The Browns River, which we used to hunt at all the time, is now closed. You can't go hardly anywhere. Back then there was in one given area, there was 400 leftover doe tags. Now you have to draw, like you did with elk, just to hunt a deer. So they've done a lot to decimate the population there. All right. So he kept telling me, you got to go east. You got to go where you can grow food, and in order to grow food, you have to have water. Now, he had seen this. Now, after about the 100th time, maybe 20th, it finally sunk in. This guy has been around the world several times. He has seen civilizations go down. And the first night I met him, he pointed to a flag up in the corner, and he said, that flag was given to me by a boy, a 12-year-old boy who was not as tall as the M16 that I issued him. We trained battalions of people to fight communism, and we knew what our government was going to do. We knew they were going to pull us out of there. And I tried to adopt that little boy, but we weren't there. Plausible deniability. If you're caught, blah, 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 captured, we'll deny any, knowledge of your existence. They were there. They weren't there. They were there, but they weren't, okay? So they couldn't adopt him. What happened was that they drew out all resistance to fight communism and then had them all annihilated, withdrew all support, all supplies, ammunition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my friend knew that was going to happen. And one of the things he said was that first